Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Launch Pad. In this week's episode of the Launch Pod, our weekly podcast where we talk about everything that's happened in space and the things that you can look forward to coming up in the week ahead. As always, I'm joined by Ian. Ian, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How about yourself, Zach?
I'm good. It's we took a week off. The world's gone through some things, but we're back and we're ready to talk about everything that's happened kind of in the last week and a bit, and of course take your guys' live comments and questions. We know we're a bit late. We were working on getting some last stuff up and running, as you might have seen in the chat. We'll mention it really quickly off the bat. We're putting everything from tonight's show into helping get supplies to the Ukraine. So if you'd like to join us in helping do that, you can hit the heart with the two hands in the chat there, and everything from tonight is going straight through from YouTube 100%. They're not even taking their cut, and is sending that over so we can send just our thoughts and prayers and a little bit of funds to help get them some supplies as they navigate this very unique time in their history, and know that we are obviously, the whole TLP crew is thinking about them and sending them our best. But we're going to dive into that a little bit later in the show about everything that's been happening and how that's affecting space. But there's a lot of other stuff that's been happening, and I think we'll just jump right on into it. So Ian, what's up first?
Yeah, so first, actually, I wanted to take a second, and we wanted to start to do this at the beginning of every episode now, just to kind of go through the different things that we're going to talk about, and we're going to have some nice graphics coming up. Thank you already to somebody that has donated $5 to Ukraine. That's awesome. Keep it going. That is another way to derail us. We'll do it for super chats, but now for this episode, we will also do it for donations. So real quick, we mentioned, we of course are talking about space news, so we don't want to get too much into politics, but it's unavoidable what's going on in the world right now. So first few topics we're going to touch on will be a little bit more lighthearted. We're going to talk about flying your name on Artemis 1, SpaceX getting new crewed missions down, 3 of them, Rocket Lab launching their Electron rocket from a new pad, and they're building a new complex. Blue Shift just finished testing the largest ever commercial rocket engine powered by a bio-derived fuel. Tomorrow, there is a rocket hitting the moon. And then we start to get into our Russia-Ukraine topics, kind of going over generally what's happening, and then how it all impacts space. Mainly, Starlinks are being delivered, Soyuz launches are suspended, OneWeb is not launching, working with Germany on the International Space Station. They have also stopped
big.
selling engines to the US. Oh,
It's
I went
just like
big
that.
now.
Ian's growing again.
Yeah, look, my size is never consistent. And then wrapping it up with Starbase 2.0, the real launch facility finally being built at Kennedy. So that's a lot of things. We'll be a lot more polished next week. We've got some graphics in the works that we're going to do too. But for now, let's get to the top of it, flying your name on Artemis 1. So, of course, we've talked a lot about... Oh, I'm slowly getting fixed. We've talked a lot about Artemis 1 and what it means. It's still planning on launching sometime in June. We are definitely going to be there. Oh, thank you so much. Somebody donated $20. Fantastic. 30H3. Thank you so much. So they're planning on launching in June. And on that launch, they have announced that they are going to have a flash drive full of names, and you can put your name on that flash drive. They've done this a lot of times before, they being NASA, with a lot of different missions. This is just the newest one. So, Zach, I've changed sizes again. I have my name on quite a few of them, the Mars rovers, even the Parker Space Probe, and now Artemis 1. I remember you showed me the other day a graphic that you had. Kind of give us a quick overview. Which names do you have so far for different missions?
Oh, there's been a few. I've been doing this back since 2004. I was in grade 5 when I found the first one, so my name and some of my family's names were included on the Spirit and Opportunity rovers that went, and kind of done it ever since. So we've been on The most recent one would have been Perseverance, but we were on the Orion one for when they did the first test of the Orion capsule. We were on a number of the Mars ones. We were on InSight. We were on one of the polar ones. We were on one a while ago where they directly smashed something into the moon, but I haven't been able to find that certificate. But there's been a number, and it's just a great way to have the community be able to join and just get excited about these upcoming missions and have something that you can say, yeah, not only was I alive when this happened, I was aware it was happening. That's one thing I really like that they do about this is they do shut off, obviously, if it's going on a flash drive, there's a cutoff point that they can't include any more data. So it's a really neat way of being like, yeah, I was aware of this actually a while before the mission and getting to have it as a keepsake. I know we've got our names here, collecting those 1.3 million miles. One day, hopefully, we can turn those into actually something there, but excited that we'll be part of Artemis 1, hopefully in more than one way, one on site and watching our names go. We're just that much closer to getting on board. And to another anonymous donor donated $5, thank you so much for doing that. That is awesome to see. Thank you.
Yeah, I love these donations. Yeah, so Zach's got his name on there. I've got my name on there. And for anybody that's been in the Discord or who wants to join the Discord, we've been sharing our tickets there. So that's a great way to connect with everybody else and learn about a lot of these things before we even get to talk about it on the podcast. So pretty cool that you can now put your name on Artemis 1.
Yeah, and then coming up, also announced this week, which was a big one that kind of connected a little bit to everything that's been happening in the world, is the future of the ISS and what's going on there. SpaceX has had their contract extended again with 3 more missions, extending them, I believe, into about 2035, 36, so up to Crew 9 now will be flown on Crew Dragon. Of course, Starliner still has its first 3 flights approved with crews, but we'll all have to not hold our breath and wait to see when those will occur. But it's great to see that NASA, they're already working on doing a whole new contract for another set of missions. But NASA's not waiting for that. They're not waiting to see who else applies. They know Crew Dragon works. They know it's reliable, and they know it's American. So they're extending it kind of at 3 sets at a time. So we know we're going to get a number more crew launches on top of all the private missions that we're going to be seeing over the next few years. So that was a surprise announcement from NASA earlier this week.
Yeah, so I know we're trying to go a little bit quicker on these topics, so I don't want to land on this too long, but to launch schedule, I wonder how that's going to play in with how they're trying to add more missions in general as they get things like Polaris, but then I'm sure there's going to be more potentially already in the works people that have bought seats, and how often that Crew Dragon is going to start flying out of Kennedy.
Yeah, it's definitely going to pick up a lot more, and they've only got 4 Crew Dragon capsules, the 4th one being debuted later this year, so it does limit them, and maybe we'll see if there's enough interest that we'll actually start seeing a few more of those be developed. But at this time, they said 4 is what they're happy with. It's what their teams can deal with, and they'll go from there. But SpaceX has a new kind of competitor starting to come up. They announced Neutron a couple months ago, and now they're picking up speed. But Rocket Lab, after quite a while waiting to do so, has brought their second pad online at New Zealand in the Mahia Peninsula. So they've now can have 2 rockets out on a pad, and we're getting into this era where we see 2-3 rockets on pads at a time, which is really awesome to see. Of course, the red for their reusability, the white for their expendable. But not only are they planning on Electron getting online, we've heard for a while that they were getting ready to come to the United States. They were waiting for their regulatory approvals and everything to occur. Where'd the photo go? This is fun. Let me go
that
find
was my
that
ticket.
photo. That's your ticket. Surprise, Ian's going somewhere else too.
Yeah.
They are getting ready to expand into a new facility in Virginia. And not only are they going to be launching, but they're going to be building. And they're going to have this beautiful new facility where they will build Neutron. They're going to be creating a bunch of new jobs, and they're getting ready to break ground in the very near future. A production and launch site, so very similar to what we've seen at Starbase, a lot smaller because it's a much smaller vehicle, but great to see the Rocket Lab, which is an American company, but has only exclusively launched out of New Zealand, getting ready to take those next steps and become active here in the United States. And you can see that with all of their new branding as well. So that's going to be a cool place that hopefully we can maybe go see one day. Peter Beck, give us a call.
Yeah, we can make it happen. Virginia's not too far away.
Yeah. Let's see. These are all mine. Blue
Yeah,
Shift,
they are.
loading me up. Blue Shift Aerospace. Many of you probably have not heard of Blue Shift, and it's a company that we're gonna try to do a video on here in the near future. But Blue Shift is working on building some of the world's largest commercial rocket engines that are powered by non-toxic, carbon-neutral, bio-derived fuels. We covered their first launch of their Stardust vehicle last February, actually, launching in Maine. And earlier this week, after a few scrubs and stuck open valves, they, on March 1st, successfully test-fired their first ever engine of their newer model. This is their second scale model here that they're working on, that they are hopeful to be able to bring online in the near future for suborbital missions. I know suborbital, there's feelings about that, but once they get that one working, they're going to bring online a actual low Earth orbit vehicle is their goal, to be able to help bring more mission supplies, colleges into that low Earth orbit sector and the suborbital sector, because many colleges just need to get up to 0G for a few minutes. But if you want to learn more about them, blueshiftaerospace.com, definitely check them out. And Ian shrunk again.
Yeah, there we go.
So Ian, you hinted at it.
Honestly,
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say real quick, I'm honestly really excited for all these different types of fuels that are going. Biofuel is also really great, but then even SLS, things like where the exhaust is going to be water. I know Tim Dodd did a really great video a while ago about the pollution aspect of rockets and is it actually that bad? And the conclusion was, honestly, it's not too bad. And I think more emerging technologies like this are really hammering home that point that even though we are launching things into space and it is based off of chemical reactions, it doesn't necessarily have to be harmful for the environment. So really excited to see this new stuff. And even if it does take a lot of those scrubs and stuck open valves and delays, eventually it does happen. So one of the other things that eventually is going to happen, we've mentioned this a few times now. I think this is the third podcast. You guys know that rocket that was SpaceX, but then was not SpaceX and was going to hit the moon. It's hitting the moon tomorrow. We're finally getting there. Now, for those of you that were unaware of the controversy, and I kind of said it already, everybody was originally told that this was definitely a Falcon 9, and there was this big uproar about, oh, how dare they pollute our rocket parts onto the moon. And of course, this is something that we've done before. Even on Earth, we've done before, so it's not too big of a deal. And we said that when we thought it was the Falcon 9, and then turns out it wasn't the Falcon 9. It was a Chinese rocket that had launched early 2010s, I think. And now it's finally about to hit. I don't know if we have an exact time or location yet. Probably has to be a little bit closer to get that information. But I do know that there are people that are watching it because anything that happens is good science, good observational data. And it's not very often that we get things hitting the moon. So there's going to be some eyes there. Hopefully we'll know some more information that we can relay to you after it happens. But did want to give you that update since we have mentioned it a few times. It is finally time. It's just finally going to hit.
We're finally going to hit the moon.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think that China was going to land something on the moon before we did this year. So, things always happen.
We'll just beat them and stay longer.
But, yeah, well, that's the hope. But kind of... shifting to the more serious topic at hand in relation to things happening that are kind of unexpected. For those of you that are unaware, there is a lot going on in other parts of the world right now. And we had a community discussion in regards to everything last week, and we took the episode off. We thought it was proper to not really report. It was a slower news week, and we really wanted to give the attention where it was due. And the attention obviously still does need to be on what's going on in Ukraine. So, for those of you that do not know, Russia has been invading Ukraine for the past week to week and a half now. There have been, I think, reported at least a few thousand casualties. I don't know if there's an exact number yet. There's a lot of things that are still in the air. A lot of internet has been cut out. There's fuel shortages. People are trying to flee the country. People are going into the country to fight. There's just every day, I feel like there's new updates that are coming through. And we don't want to pretend like we are people that know a lot about geopolitics or what's going on in the world. So we just wanted to give you kind of that brief overview, as to say, too, that it is affecting a lot more than just the political realm. Of course, Russia being the agitator in the situation is a country that we have a lot of things in common in regards to goals in space, but then we have a lot of collaboration with, both directly through projects, but then also through allied nations and partnerships that we've long held. So it's definitely thrown the space world into a bit of a tizzy, and we're going to talk on some of those topics now. So I had mentioned that to kind of start out a little bit lighter, there have been lots of internet outages. And of course, we talk a lot about different Starlink launches. We don't really get to talk what that means for the people that are impacted by Starlink. Of course, the ultimate goal is to get internet service to those that would otherwise not have it, which is mostly targeting small rural communities and those that just don't have access. But it's also proven itself to be very valuable in this war zone. So one of the Ukrainian officials had reached out directly to Elon Musk on Twitter and challenged him to send some Starlink terminals to the Ukraine, which was an area that, if I'm correct, didn't even have Starlink access to begin with, let alone the infrastructure to maintain it. Elon Musk actually was totally down. He had turned on Starlink access to the Ukraine, I guess, changing some of the positions of some of the satellites, maybe pointing it to give a little bit of the bandwidth from other places. And then, as you can see on the screen, sent a truckload of terminals to the Ukraine. We don't know exactly how many were in the truckload, but we do know from that official and from others that have now received those terminals and are using it, they are having a large impact. They're able to get communications out to the rest of the world, but more importantly, almost get communications from the rest of the world in. And with pretty high bandwidth. I think they had done a speed test on one of them right after the terminals were sent over, and it was something on the order of 120 megabits per second download. So pretty phenomenal that can happen. And there were also concerns about how they're going to keep these terminals and other things powered because of those fuel shortages. And Elon had said earlier today that they are making software updates such that the Starlink can actually use a lot less power and can be used mobile rather than just being in a stationary location. Because two was, if you don't have a lot of signals going out, will those potentially become a target if Russia controls the airspace and they can see that RF signal? So I'm really glad that Elon is kind of taking the lead on this and is very receptive to what the Ukrainian government is asking of him. And I'm very glad, too, that this is actually making the difference that Ukraine says that they need. So I'm really glad to see that happening.
Yeah, it was not what I was expecting, within the first couple days of the invasion, was to hear Starlink, they're sending trucks, and now I believe we've heard at least 2 of the trucks have made it into Kiev and the region to be distributed. We haven't heard a lot, obviously, about how they're distributing them, because that falls into all the military deployment. And even if we did, we weren't going to say anything. But to hear that they are working and that they are able to have that communication is just so key. And I think it just shows why Starlink is such a powerful thing to have in our world right now of communication. Normally it is that rural community, but in times of war like this, it does guarantee that, no matter what's happening in your land, as long as you still have that power and a direct line of sight to the sky, you can stay connected, and that's really critical for those people to stay connected and also just get messages out to people of what's going on actually on the ground, because the first thing that disappears in times of war is normally communication and what's actually happening. So to see Elon step in a way and say this is such a critical thing is huge. He did also talk about how obviously this now does put Starlink as not a great friend of Russia. It is now the largest internet provider in the Ukraine that is not a Russian system because of all the stuff they've taken offline. So they are making sure that they are keeping Starlink secured and making sure that people's data is also private and stuff in that way and monitoring it. So the fact that he even just stated like, hey, we know that this makes it a target, we're addressing it, I think really shows that they're trying to stay on top of it and make it functional. Also coming out through all of this was a big question on kind of what does the future of space look like, because a lot of America's rockets, Europe's rockets all run on Russian engines, even for just one of the stages. And we started seeing this on about day 4 to 5 that Roscosmos originally said, and NASA said, oh, we're fine, we're going to stay peaceful, and then more and more sanctions got laid on. And that started kind of rolling out the questions on what things will look like. One of the first announcements that came out of Roscosmos was that the Soyuz that we normally see launch from French Guiana, normally carries OneWeb, will no longer be launching Soyuz from there, at least until further notice. There was scheduled to be some launches coming up from there, and Russia has now pulled all of their employees and crew from the French Baikonur location and brought them back home, that they are not servicing the grounds, they are not there to provide servicing, and that basically that French Guiana pad is now offline until further notice. And I think it's, as you said, we don't know how things will play out, but no matter what happens, even let's say we had peace tomorrow, these type of things will take longer to get back online once they pull that trigger, because they're going to need to, not recertify, but make sure that everything's still safe, probably do some testing, especially when they've been left secured but still alone. So that was something I think kind of surprising to see. And then we were supposed to have a launch tomorrow, I believe it was, of a OneWeb mission out of Baikonur in Kazakhstan. So not necessarily Russia, but Baikonur. A OneWeb mission. And this mission has now been canceled because Russia is... Russia, Roscosmos specifically, not just Russia, but Roscosmos wanted insurance that OneWeb would not be used by the European countries or NATO or the Ukraine to be used as spy satellites or anything that could impact their invasion plans. And they put out 2 demands. One was that the European government would withdraw all of its shareholder agreement and holdings within OneWeb, so it would be just private. And 2, that they wanted them to guarantee that they would not be used for military or spy systems at all. And that was something that very quickly OneWeb said, no, we're not going to do that. Which I think, they're standing with what their principles and their missions of OneWeb is, just connecting a lot of different countries. So it was interesting to see that. And we'll just see kind of what happens with OneWeb. They're now looking for new launch providers to be able to continue building their constellation. I think they've had 14 missions so far. So they're still pretty early on, but they need a lot less satellites than Starlink. So I think having another option like Starlink up and deployed will be huge. They started in the poles and then are working their way to the equator. So I'm not sure they're actually able to activate it for Ukraine at this time, but they're working towards it. But yeah, with that, Ian, I guess kind of thoughts on seeing Soyuz coming offline, Baikonur changing, French Guiana changing. What were your kind of thoughts and opinions when this kind of all started rolling out?
Yeah, it made me nervous. Not in the sense that I think that anybody's safety is at risk, because I think there is at least that level of respect in the space community. But a lot of what we do is built off of that trust that we have with mutual member nations, whether it's in the research that we do or even just how we get satellites and other things into orbit. So a lot of what we do is built on Russia in one way or another, and the fact that they're slowly pulling more and more things out. That now we're seeing impacts on right now. It's a little concerning, and it makes me worried for what this can lead into. And we are going to talk more about that in a second. But I see you have queued up one of the photos. When they had announced this, Roscosmos had also tweeted out that, and I think something along the lines of almost an exact quote, "We think our rockets look better without these flags on them. They look more beautiful this way." I think that kind of summarizes what's going on, and it's a really sad thing to see. Outside of wanting these specific missions to launch or not, any time that a country feels that they should kind of cover up everybody that they've worked with for decades now and kind of shun themselves away from the world, it's just a really sad thing to see them actually putting the stickers on all these different flags and covering it up. I hope this doesn't spill into too much of other relations we have, mostly the ISS. I don't think there's too much left at this point other than the ISS. Soyuz was really a big one. But yeah, I mean, it's just really tough. It's really tough to see.
I want to point out, because I find it's funny, Roscosmos doesn't want to use American things. They're using 3M stickers to cover the flags, which apparently is an American company. So I found that a little bit of humor in the unfortunate side of what they're doing there. But I think one thing I think we would all agree on and would want to make clear is, these people are being told to do this. These are not, the scientists and stuff making these decisions. These are the heads of Roscosmos and the Russian government making these decisions, and they're doing their job to ensure their safety. So we know that the people of Russia, a lot of them also are not agreeing with everything that's happening. So, to them too, stay safe. But it's sad to see other flags. I actually hadn't even seen this whole video where they had covered the U.S. flag. That's kind of crazy to see with the 30 plus years of cooperation on the station. And I think we were hearing a little bit today also that now with the station they are not working with Germany anymore. They've said to Germany, we are no longer partnering together on your research on the station. So yeah, it's starting to spill over into the space industry. And we'll kind of just have to see where it goes from there. I would not want to be on the space station right now because I think it would just be really awkward. We've heard from a lot of astronauts that things have happened before with Russia, and the world. We can't say they haven't. There have been other incidences, and we've had the space station since. Nothing really this scale. But the astronauts always said the people on the station, they're all there for the same reason. And the same passions and missions and dreams, so that it does generally keep that peace, and that they want to work together on what they're doing. So we'll see what happens there. Also, kind of adding to the fire of no more Soyuz launches and stuff is that Russia has stopped selling some engines. Now, this is going to sound like a big thing. It's really not, because ULA and Tory Bruno are brilliant. The Atlas V rocket uses a Russian engine as one of its main engines. And when it was announced that Russia was going to stop supplying these engines, one of the first tweets I saw about it was someone tweeting Tory Bruno, the CEO of ULA, saying, well, what's going to happen with the remaining 30 or so Atlases? And he's like, oh, don't worry, I pre-ordered. All the engines are in the factory. Like, he was kind of super calm and chill about it. At least that's how it came in the tweet, that they have their engines. Now, Roscosmos responded to that of, well, we're not going to service them anymore or provide support to them because they are Russian engines. Now, ULA has launched a lot of these, so I think their teams probably know a fair deal about them, but just kind of peeling those layers of the onions. We're getting deeper and deeper into some of these partnerships and seeing how they affect. Russia's also said they're no longer going to sell the engines that are used on the Antares rocket, which I believe we only had 1 to 2 more of. I believe we had one more Cygnus mission for sure on Antares. We just had one a couple weeks ago. So we don't normally see those often. But if that is true and we don't have an Antares to launch a Cygnus, they're going to have to look at another option, because Cygnus is also being used for the orbit maintenance of the International Space Station moving forward, not just the Soyuz craft. So a lot of things NASA's going to be obviously looking into. We were on a couple press calls this week with them about other topics where obviously these were big conversations, and they kind of just played it as we're working on it. And at that point, a lot of this hadn't come out yet from Roscosmos, and ever since it's pretty radio silent from them. But I'm sure their teams are working on making sure we ensure the safety and then ensure the science from it. So a lot of things happening down around the world, figuring out what is happening. And we don't want to dread on about it, so we figured we'd end on another topic that is a big one. And I saw these happening earlier over the last kind of week or so. We've seen that SpaceX is really getting ready to build the Starbase orbital launch facility at Kennedy. And Trevor on Twitter spotted these trucks last week on February 28th. And there's only one tower we really all know in the world that uses those big beams, which is the Starbase Tower. And those were found arriving at Cape Canaveral. So that's a great sign. And then we're like, they're probably going to take a little bit to prepare. And then today, a few different people took helicopter trips and started noticing, oh wait, they're actually already laying them next to the metal structures, which we've seen at Starbase, where they would stack them and build the structure and then roll it down the road, and then roll those kind of browny, rusty sections back to the build site and build another one. We can see that they have up to 3 sections that they can build at a time, but we're seeing a lot of development at Roberts Road, a lot of work at Pad 39A. So I think we can safely say, being down at the event, Elon said, if the FAA wasn't going to approve it, they've already got approval for Pad 39A and they'll launch from there. Still need their launch license, but they've got environmental approval. I think we're seeing them not wait. FAA wanted another month, end of March, excuse me. A lot of us don't think we're going to see until after SLS flies. So I think they're saying we're not waiting. We're just going to go full blast into Kennedy, and if Starbase gets approved, it's a bonus. But if not, they're going to work on Kennedy, because it's going to take probably at least 6 months or a bit more, to 6 to 9 months to get Kennedy at least to the testing stage of their tower, because it's still an operational facility. That's one of the biggest differences, is they can't just have everybody working 24/7 there when they're preparing for launches as well. So lots of things happening in the world of space and figuring it out. But is there anything else we missed this week, Ian?
No, I mean, that kind of hits all the things. Well, if I can mention one last miscellaneous bit that we had talked about before here, what I find funny. Of course, these are just reports and rumors right now, but every now and then we find some new celebrity or figurehead that flies on with Blue Origin. Reports are saying that Jeff Bezos is going back with Pete Davidson. So take that as you will. Hopefully we'll know more about that by next week. But I think that about it out.
Now, are they going to do an SNL skit? They only got 3 minutes.
Oh,
and I'll be honest, some of the SNL skits, don't seem like they take that much time. So maybe an actual 0G skit?
If they were to do a skit, I don't know how that would go down, because I assume it would also be making fun of Jeff Bezos while Jeff Bezos is there. He would have to have it would be fantastic. He'd have to have a good sense of humor, which I don't know. So I have not thought about that angle. That's a pretty cool idea that I would love to see, in all honesty.
Pete Davidson, if you're watching, you're welcome.
Yeah, so I'll give it another second. By the way, for everybody, we're done with the topics. If you would like to send some questions over, this is now going to be our question and answer portion. Um, I hope, of course, I'm not trying to be too rushy with what's happening. I know that these things take time and there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but maybe given everything that's going on, um, and seeing how fragile these relationships can be if we rely heavily on countries, especially ones that we know that we've had a rusty history with before, if that will help accelerate any domestic stuff that we're doing, whether it be Rocket Lab or SpaceX or Virgin Galactic, any other companies that we've mentioned. That could be internally, they think that they can push more because they might get more constructive feedback from the government, or whether it's on the government side, they want to put a little bit more funding than they otherwise would, and just trying to keep those things homegrown and domestic, both for cargo and for people. Of course, right now, with Soyuz being kind of how it is, of course, I don't know if we had any Soyuz launches planned for crew. Am I missing out on that? Did we have anything that was coming up?
I don't think that they've
Or were they
fully
transitioning mostly to?
announced. Obviously, the U.S. works on a lot. I think one of the big things that probably fell apart pretty quick was we were expecting, I believe, on Crew 4 to have the first cosmonaut on a Crew Dragon mission. That was either
Mhm.
Crew 4 or 5. So I'm assuming that is not happening at this current time. We haven't heard anything directly from SpaceX on that. But that was the main one that I know of. We generally, it's every 2 to 3 missions send someone up on a Soyuz. So wait and see what happens.
Okay, yeah. But
We have
anyway,
we have at least one American that has to come down on a Soyuz right now.
yeah,
So that's on station.
that's going to be really tense because whenever they come down, don't they still do it within Russian and controlled area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And
That's
they
not going
can't
to
leave them.
be.
So
Yeah, yeah. That's going to be a tense one. So we'll we'll keep our eye on that. Um, but yeah, if I can think of anything positive, hopefully it's just that this serves as more of a reason for us to invest in our own space industry. I know you're not in the U.S. I'm maybe speaking more for a U.S.
yeah,
Point of
Canada
view.
doesn't have a. We make arms, and that's about all we do.
Hey, hey, don't sell your arms short. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I totally agree with you. I think we've seen it kind of industry wide, seeing companies looking back at the U.S. and even just European partners and see what you can do in your own homeland. Don't always have to rely on other countries necessarily. Obviously, partnership and cooperation is a huge part of what we want for space, especially with the Artemis Accords and getting ready to go back to the moon and Mars. But making sure that you have ways. I think that's why Falcon was such a big deal of American rockets on American soil from American sites or whatever it was. That it was the U.S. is back and they don't need anyone else to go. And that's what they're really working on now. And now they're working on other people coming with them. So I don't think we'll see the U.S. ever get to a place where they don't have. I mean, SpaceX isn't going anywhere, but we're not going to get to a place where the U.S. does not have a way to get to space by themselves and have to rely on anyone else again. And I hope we see that with some others. Ooh, that's some fun spam. Thank you so much for being here. Have a
yeah,
wonderful evening.
thank you, Richie, for taking care of that. Oh, it's going. It's still going.
I see questions are coming in. If you guys have questions for Ian and I, take a moment, tag us at the launch pad in with your question in the chat. We'll be answering those. If you want one of us specifically to answer it, just put like for Ian or for Zach. If not, we'll kind of volley them back and forth. I saw one kind of right away. Tubular asking, maybe I missed it, but what are your predictions for the ISS in the short term and beyond? We know Station is going to have crews until at least 2030 now. And then probably 2031 and 2 is when it'll be kind of retired and prepared for deorbiting. Ian shrinking again.
Small again.
We're just going to leave you small. And And so they're working on that for cooperation on the station with stuff going on. NASA's working on it. They haven't said a lot. We talked with on a call with Kathy. I'm blanking on her last name, but she's a big part of NASA and the station. And she said that they were still having open communications with all of the ISS partners. There wasn't any strain at that point, but I think we're starting to see that maybe break down a little. So we'll hopefully have some updates from NASA in the near future of trying to make sure. We've been up there for 20 years. It's got 10 more. It would be an amazing thing for human history to have something for 30 years as an international partnership. And Ian's big again, as a partnership that has lasted that long and was the entire lifespan of the station. I think would be really special for history. So hopefully.
Yeah, I foresee maybe things, worst comes to worst, Russia pulls out on a lot of the just direct scientific partnerships we have. I don't know if they would directly abandon any of the infrastructure they have on the ISS, because they did pour a lot of their own money into that. However, that being said, either way, I'm sure it causes a lot of trust issues. So even if they don't pull out with anything, I hope that at the very least, those partnerships can survive to some degree. But in terms of the structural stability, yeah, there are contingencies. SpaceX has even talked about the possibility of using their own Dragon capsules for reboosting capabilities. I saw some people mention that in the chat. So there are definitely some contingencies being planned in that worst case scenario. So I'm right there with you, Zach. I think we survived 20 years. It's looking not too great right now, but I feel like we can get through this.
I do too. And I think that's the mindset that needs to be held, is not looking at all the necessarily doom and gloom of what can happen, but look at what we have done together. As I said earlier, it's not the first time there's been, some unsettling times in the world with Russia. And it's survived before, so I think we can do it again. I don't think they'd split up the ISS, solely because I don't think Russia has enough other modules ready that they could separate their modules and still be functional. Like, it would, as you said, would be hurting them more than anyone else on the station. So we'll see what happens in that case. I see a lot of questions about that.
Somebody had asked earlier, and I can't find it, so I'll paraphrase, and I don't remember who said, if Starlink had some sort of a self-destruct in the case that it was captured by Russia. It does not. I don't think it would be to any benefit for them to take a Starlink anyway, because it's... Yeah. I mean, it's essentially like a Wi-Fi router. It just gives you access to the internet. So the only... worry is that radio frequency signal can be used to track down people in the military that are using it for communication purposes on Ukraine's side. There's not really much of a worry of them taking the Starlink itself, and if they do, there's not really a tactical advantage to that, so I wouldn't worry about it. But no, there is no self-destruct. It's just make sure it's not connected to power.
Yeah. And it's been a pretty good day, Margaret. I appreciate your thing. A happy late Mardi Gras to you as well. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Margaret.
Zac in color and Ian shrinks. It's...
Yeah, look, we had a good few episodes of me staying normal sized. It was about time that I decided to grow and shrink a bit, but glad to be back.
I'll tease it here. We're going to start bringing out TLP bingo for you guys with the podcast starting probably next week. And it's going to be something you guys can play along. There's going to be prizes. Yeah, prizes. That means you want to stay the whole episode. And it's going to have a whole bunch of your favorite things that happen during the podcast, maybe things that we always say, and you guys will be able to play along. But join in the Discord, and we're going to be looking for suggestions on what should be included on that bingo over the next few days. So if you haven't yet, we'll drop that in the chat. There's the Discord link. It's free to join. I'll be hanging out over in there a little later tonight as well, maybe playing some Kerbal or something, and we'll kind of go from there. If you guys haven't yet, send in any questions that you have, maybe not NATO Russia related, and we'll be answering those. I know that's obviously the big topic of the world right now, and there's yeah, we don't have a lot more to say other than what we've said. So that's a good point. Ted, thank you for seeing the fundraiser. If you guys would like to partner with us in that, we're going to do that for tonight. We've got it on the James Webb stream right now as well. So you guys can help work with us to get supplies over to the Ukraine. If it doesn't work, find a charity that is one that you prefer. I know not all the countries have the YouTube giving open to them. It is on specific countries, so that is there. And if you can't donate, that's totally understandable as well. Don't feel like you have to do it. Only do it if you can.
Yeah. Earlier, so I'm scrolling up, Redwater had asked a question, are there spy satellites over Ukraine? Of course, we don't know any specifics. I'd have to imagine so.
Yes.
One thing that has been interesting, though, one thing that has been interesting is actually seeing a lot of the satellite images that are being taken, mostly by U.S. satellites, and then we are sharing that information with Ukraine. But that's an aspect of war that I think last time we had these higher tensions that we've never really seen before, these live updates of here's what it looked like yesterday, here's what it looks like today. And of course, that's only possible because of the infrastructure that we've put into space. So if you're ever wondering why we're launching all of these different satellites that are just for communications or just for taking photos or weather data, it doesn't seem all too important. A lot of that is behind the scenes, but this is a clear example of when that behind the scenes really becomes more apparent to the average person just because of what that situation is.
Yeah, I think a prime example of that, somewhat related to space, but not really, it's an airplane. The world's largest aircraft, the Antov, some number, the largest
RIP.
six. There we go. It was destroyed, and it was confirmed destroyed before the Antov company had even been on site or made a public statement, because people were looking at satellite data. There are a lot of satellites that put out data publicly that you can receive, and people were retrieving that data and seeing that there had been a strike there, destroying that craft. So a lot of this technology that we see launched that we don't always think necessarily about, like NOAA just launched their new I'm blanking on the name,
Ghosty.
number 18 sat that's being deployed right now. You can publicly set up a little receiver dish and pull down data from that. You have to know how to receive it and decode it and stuff, but it is possible to do, and that is possible in lots of places around the world with different data if you're in the right location. So it is neat seeing that side get used and be a little bit more publicly shared than we normally maybe would have seen. Ted's bringing up how Putin sounds like poutine, and I had poutine for lunch, and it was fantastic. So,
I've always wanted to try poutine. I've heard mixed reviews.
Oh my goodness, you haven't had poutine?
I'm not from Canada. They don't have poutine in Louisiana.
Poutine? Poutine?
But yeah, I accident. Yeah, they don't have poutine in Louisiana. Have you had boudin?
What is that?
Okay, we're on even footing. There we go.
What is boudin? I at least know what poutine is.
Next time you come down, well, whenever you visit, you will be visiting New Orleans, Baton Rouge eventually. I'll make sure you have boudin. You can bring poutine, and then we can do our Chick-fil-A maple syrup swap out.
There we go. That's what we're gonna do. Yeah, absolutely. When you can actually fly with it home.
Yeah.
We've got Richie asking, I wonder about the Raptors vibrating on Starship to hit each other. What do you think? So, like, when they're firing?
They're far enough away from each other.
In theory.
Yeah, if you look at SpaceX and Elon have put out a few different pictures of the engines all together in an array, but then also videos of them kind of adjusting themselves as if they would do in flight. And there is some decent space around them, so even given the vibrations, I'm pretty sure that they're totally fine with it.
We got a question about what's new with James Webb, and now that I think about it, 2 weeks ago, I don't think we had the newest image, did we?
Oh, well, yeah, we had when everything looked like warped. We didn't have everything once it was kind of focused and then stacked. And of course, it's not done yet. Now they have to try and get stacked into more of a pinpoint so they can have precise. Really, it's measurement. We see it as optical, but it's really about the data that's inside of it. But that's coming up, and if you are one of the lucky and very smart, very handsome, beautiful people that do watch our James Webb Space Telescope streams, you will see that this is on there. Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't bring it up. Also, I want to say real quick, Kaiser Cube, yeah, fellow Louisianian, it's great to see you here. There's not many of us, so. He also says boudin is fantastic. You do need to try it.
Well, see, I'm gonna have to Google this now. I don't even know what it is. It's like alligator or something.
It's a type of sausage. No, although fried alligator, if you haven't had that, also fantastic.
Fried alligator? I don't.
Yeah, that's.
I've had
very
other
much
things
a
I
real
didn't
thing.
think I'd eat in my life, but maybe we'll try alligator. We'll see.
All right.
But yeah, definitely check out the James Webb there. You can see that new complete image stacking. This is where they took those 18 dots, prettied them up, and then put them all on top of each other. It's a start. It's a start for James Webb. And I wanted to actually look it up here because now thinking about it, I saw just before we went live, James Webb did a tweet, and I want to just verify. They were saying they had done some testing with Miri, I believe it was. So let me just pull that up if you want to grab the next question.
Yeah, so this actually, but Ted has mentioned he makes his own maple syrup. It is fantastic, the people that we have in our community. Yeah, Ted, reach out to me on Discord after this. I'd love to take you up on that offer. Homemade maple syrup is pretty fantastic. About a year ago, when I was really bored and COVID was still very much a thing that was kind of affecting my life, I was trying to think about things that I can do to branch out. I went through a bread making phase, but then I also went through a chocolate making phase from scratch from the bean. I still have a lot of cocoa beans, all of my supplies, my melanger machine, and a lot of bars of chocolate that went unsold. They're untempered. I have to remelt them, pour it in the mold, but they are fantastic, if I can say so myself.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to have a Launch Pod episode where I talk space and you're tempering chocolate and making chocolate on stream.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. Or look, next to the James Webb stream, because that's mostly the same stuff. You just have a little window, and then you see me pounding on some beans and kind of roasting everything and mixing it all up, and yeah, it'll be the dual telescope chocolate making stream.
There we go. The tweets from James Webb. The Webb team has successfully completed initial checks showing that the inner workings of the James Webb near-spec instruments are in good order, and that you can go onto their blog and take a look at just some of the technical info. But another checkout of Webb, another system getting ready to be kind of fully brought online and showing that it's performing the way it should, which is fantastic news after 30 plus years of development.
Yeah. Wow, I derailed chat.
The chat's gone. The chat is gone.
The chat is gone. Yeah, Heather, if we ever do a TLP meetup, remind me before the meetup, and 100% I will bring everybody homemade chocolate.
So what we're saying is we're going to have Launch Pod add chocolate. Can we do custom shapes?
Look. Yes, actually, I did think about that. If you do a 3D printer mold and then you do a vacuum form over the mold, I do know people that can help me out with both of those things. We can do anything that we want. I just have to pour it. So
another reason why you're going to have to come to TLP meetups.
Yeah.
We need to have a Canadian corner for Zac to school Ian, and then a Cajun corner for Ian to school Zac. Let's do it. That'll happen on the Discord.
I may be from Louisiana, but I am the most opposite thing from Cajun. You don't want me to represent Louisiana foods. I don't even eat crawfish. I don't really like shrimp all that much.
I even eat crawfish.
Wow.
How do you not? I mean, once when I went to Starbase, but.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess I could say that would count. But no, I've never been a big fan. Now I definitely love me po' boy. I love jambalaya, pastalaya. There's still things that boudin, like I mentioned earlier, alligator. I can get into some stuff.
What is a chunky monkey
by no means
cake?
the perfect cake. Oh, are you talking? Well, I know what monkey cake is. I've never heard chunky monkey cake.
What's a
It's sort
monkey
of if
cake?
so monkey cake is basically like cinnamon roll bread pull apart thing with a lot more like glaze on top.
So just like
It's
a
it's
proper
like if
cinnamon roll thing.
no, it's like if cinnamon roll was bread in pull apart little squares, but also way more unhealthy.
Oh,
It's
fantastic.
fantastic. Yeah,
So
no,
I'm
it's
hearing we're
it's
gonna do a
it's
mukbang, and what we'll do is we'll try the astronaut ice cream we talked about in Discord a week ago, and then we'll have the good desserts to like fix the palate.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to look if we ever do have a TLP meetup sometime soon. We have like a big potluck and everybody just brings the best foods and we go all out.
Toledo says you are not from Louisiana, Ian. Cheese sticks. How can you can't like shrimp about gumbo? Do you like gumbo?
I said I like gumbo. I don't like here's the real kicker. Man, I love how we derailed this.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not huge into spice. So I like
Mm,
gumbo, but depending on who you talk to, the gumbo that I like is not true gumbo. But yeah, I will eat it. I will eat it.
oh, Marcus is gonna make us some triple decker brownies. Um, yeah. You can eat the unhealthiest and fast for 3 to 4 days to reset back. I like that. I'm gonna tell my doctor
I
that.
like that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Richie's
I
going to the kitchen
I'll
now.
Yeah, I know, astronomer. We got a little bit offhand. We can definitely talk about Russia and Ukraine a bit more. It's kind of dependent on what the chat does. If you guys have some good questions on the topics, send them in. Of course, not political. We do want to talk about the space part of it. We want to make it relevant to what we cover here on the channel. But Kaiser Cube, I can tell you're from Louisiana from my accent. You have the same way I do, especially when you say talk. There's an express H. Do I have a Louisianian accent? Because I've always, my whole life, felt like I do not have a Southern accent in any way.
Yes.
Um,
You
really,
you have a little bit of a twang, just a little bit,
a little bit of a twang.
just a little bit.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm not against it. Both my parents are from the north, so I guess my whole life I just always thought that I kind of got not necessarily a northern accent, but just not so much a southern accent. Am I small again, or is that just in the preview page?
No, you're small again.
Okay, love
We'll give
that.
it a minute. It'll balance out.
Heather, yeah, we did discuss Artemis, but only in the sense that you can send your name on board. If you haven't done that already, Google it. Or we also did talk about it a good bit in the Discord. Pretty simple. Type in first and last name. I think they also have you do a like PIN code. Yeah, so you can keep track of all of your previous tickets. But pretty cool. Of course, the launch is net June. I don't think they gave us a date when they're cutting off submissions for the names. But I just send it in. It takes 2 seconds. Really fun thing to do. Prints you out this cool little photo of a ticket. Send it to your friends. Say that we're on Artemis. Blow their minds.
And tell them before like the deadline. Don't be that friend that like did the super cool thing and then just didn't tell anybody. Cause I've done that. Sad. Get
Yeah.
more people's names on it. Let's see how many millions of people we can put onto Artemis 1. It is international, by the way. You don't have to be American to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Heather also asks, what is the Artemis mission?
Ooh.
So,
Do we have an hour?
we are going. Yeah, yeah. I'll do super concise. We're going back to the moon. The first mission is going to be Artemis 1. That's launched, hopefully, fingers crossed, in June. It will not have people on it. People are going to be on Artemis 2. But that Artemis 1 mission is going to be still going to the moon, and that's what's going to have the names that I had mentioned. They're going to launch it out of Kennedy. Zac and I are hoping to be there, so do look forward to some future coverage. And Utam, we are not going back to the moon this month. You did not hear that correctly.
June 7th is what they're currently targeting, which is the opening of a 13 out of 14 day window for June. So they are currently targeting that. We are expecting rollout to occur 2 weeks from, I believe, today, actually, or yesterday. And we are working on having someone on location for that. So stay tuned. We might have a live walk along with SLS as it rolls out for the very first time. If not, make sure you follow us over on Twitter, and we'll be live tweeting photos from that event as well.
For sure. Stealth mode. I'm in certified diver, much like being in space. Weightless, so cool. Two things of note. One, actually, I'm a certified diver as well. So glad to see more people out there. Maybe we can do a TLP diving trip one day.
I'll drive the boat.
Yeah, it is very much. There you go. It is very much like being weightless. In fact, NASA does a lot of their trainings for their spacewalks and getting their astronauts ready to go to space underwater. So if you want to go to YouTube one day and check out astronaut underwater training, it is pretty cool. They just have a giant pool and a mock-up of the International Space Station. I'm very big now, and you see them just kind of walking along with bubbles coming up. It's pretty fun. I hope to do something like that one day, because you don't have to be an astronaut to do it. There are certain other facilities that do let civilians have their fun in there as well.
We're going to have to get the mass shrinking, unshrinking handled, though, if you want to do that, because I don't think that would work well underwater.
Yeah, don't want to pop that suit.
No.
Have you ever gone swimming with full clothes on? Of course, it's not completely analogous to wearing that suit, but it's tough. Like, I know it's not going to be the same in space, but I mean, those suits are just really beefy and hard to maneuver to begin with. It's not really a walk in the park. If anybody else has tried it out, you'd know what I'm talking about.
Not yet. We have to see what SpaceX does. I bet they're going to look good.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I hope they're going to be a lot slimmer, of course, because you have to be fully space resistant against that vacuum. It's impossible to have something that looks as good as what they have for their current Crew Dragons. It is definitely going to be larger, bulkier, but yeah, hopefully better than what NASA and their new suits look really, really good. Or it wasn't NASA, sorry, it was I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry. The blue suits, you know what I'm talking about.
Blues. Oh, like the red, white, and blue ones that they
No, is it red? Is it red, white, and blue? Did they cancel it? Am I that behind?
This was like May last year.
This was further back than that.
Like, are you talking this suit?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. For some reason I thought it was blue as well, or like just
it
more
is
blue.
pretty blue. Like, there's a lot of blue on it.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find a photo here that we can pull up so you guys can, see what we're talking about. This will sort of do it.
So it's a little bit more slim than. Yeah, a little bit more slim. You can't make it too slim. Like, it just functionally has to be more bulky than you want it to be. But we'll see. I'm pretty pumped. It does take a lot of time, not only to design it, but then also to make it. Everything has to be hand stitched perfectly. And the assembly time, I assume, is going to take a lot longer than their current suits. So I don't expect to see something presentable to the public for probably 4 to 6 months from now, if even that, because I assume that they've been working on it for a while. Jared Isaacman has talked about seeing some designs every now and then, but they do seem like they're still in the early-ish design phases, not really in final assembly.
Well, they don't have long. They've only got 7 months to be ready to fly.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
So we'll see what happens. Yeah, the for those that were following it last summer, we did a little bit on it, not too much. Was that this suit was announced with Jim Bridenstine in this big press event, and then a couple months later, when all the Blue Origin lunar lander stuff started happening, there was a document that came out, a request for information from NASA for commercial spacesuits. But it wasn't the request, it was a pre-request to tell companies to get ready. And then we saw the actual request come out, I believe it was October or November. and they had like 30 days. So it was by December they had to have their design, like say we're interested. So to hear that SpaceX now 2 months later is literally working on building one, we've already seen Jared do a picture with like the glove of what might be the suit. It shows that SpaceX is probably going to be way ahead of the game of any of the other brands that are probably just doing sketches and stuff and actually have a suit. From that, we took that these suits, one, were way over budget, and two, would take way too long to make, that they couldn't make enough of these to be ready for the Artemis program. So the question was, So like SLS is behind. The only thing on schedule is the lunar lander from SpaceX. So it sounded like they haven't fully scrapped them, but they're looking for commercial partners to do suits instead. And then we will see these suits. If you want to see a video on it, you can head back to May, I believe, last year. We did a video on where these suits are going. This suit on your screen was designed for the moon, Mars, asteroids, and everything in between. And that is what they are wanting to require from the commercial partners. And they're going to move to a very similar model to what they're doing with the Crew Dragon, which is NASA rents them. SpaceX will build them, SpaceX will make them, and SpaceX will be the ones that suit everyone up and everything. NASA just supplies the astronaut. So, which I think is the right way for NASA to be going for the future. Focus on the science and the exploration and let people that know the hardware know the hardware.
Yeah. Leaf, you really got me with that message. So it seems. Let's see, do we have any other questions?
Yep. Let's see.
Did you just get it?
I just read it.
Okay. All right. Well,
I agree with Kyber Cube that R&D needs to be treated like R&D, especially when we're talking spacesuits. We're talking about literally private capsules for space, and definitely needs to go around there. Zach, I like how the engineers have tightened the center of gravity on the blue suits. They definitely have had a lot of advancements. That metal middle section, though, looks really ugly. Actually gives a lot more flexibility to the astronauts of being able to basically fully twist their entire upper body. And be able to bend a lot more and have a lot more functionality than the Apollo suits have, and even the current suits on the ISS. Keep in mind, the ones on the ISS were designed for in orbit, not on the surface of a planet. That's not what they're used for. So that's where we're seeing NASA wants something that's universal across the board. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure about the questions about time. If we're talking about the rollout, we're talking about 12 to 14 hours. So get some popcorn, have that ready for in a couple weeks. And we'll hopefully, it might overlap the podcast. We'll see. If it does, we'll patch it in and we'll go from there. But I think that's going to do it for episode 006. Last thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I do want to poke on this. There we go. Yeah, good way to end it. Stealth Mode actually asked me specifically a question. How have you addressed the issue of the moon dust sticking to the suits? I don't think they've talked at all about that. Interesting, the glove, I think, at least, of what SpaceX has to offer visually, to me, looks a little bit more textured. I don't know if that would mean that the dust would have an easier time sticking to it, so it wouldn't fall off as much, or if they're going to have a better method of cleaning it off. But that definitely is a major concern, that dust gets everywhere. So as we know more about that, we'll be sure to relay it over to you. But you do bring up a very good point. Now, I don't know too much about it. Also, just because we don't know too much about the new suits. So as we learn more about them in general, hopefully we'll get a better idea. But now I'll wrap it up. Yeah, wild week. Hopefully this next week is a little bit better, both in terms of human casualty, but then what we see on the space side of things. I hope it doesn't really get too much worse than this. Honestly, at the end of the day, I just want to see everybody safe, healthy, and happy. I want to see us all collaborating and working together because ultimately it does benefit all of us. We all derive a lot of really good meaning and information from the science that we do on the International Space Station, which is ultimately what it is, where we're just doing a lot of science. Everything that we launch has a purpose. Every partnership that we have is meaningful. Hopefully we can kindle those and keep them going. To everybody that helped us donate to Ukraine tonight, thank you so much. We definitely do appreciate it. And we will keep you updated with how everything is going next week, regardless of what happens, although hopefully, yeah, things do get a little bit better. One thing I didn't mention real quick, and maybe feels a little odd now given what I just said, we of course repped the Discord a few times. Do go to our merch shop. We have some fantastic merch for all of you that are interested. We've been talking about some of these rockets. Starship, Falcon 9, we do have merchandise with all of those on there. Got some great James Webb merch. Just take a look. We'll put a link to it in the chat, along with a link to the Discord for anybody that's interested in joining us there as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's a weird one. Like it's such a not awkward conversation, but it's an awkward topic because we want to address it, we want to talk about it, we all have feelings about it, but sometimes it's better not to talk about it when we don't have stuff to talk about. So I appreciate you guys even just in the chat keeping it on targeted to the space stuff that related to it. The community we have here is amazing, and even just in the Discord too. We do have a section of the Discord if people have been interested, where we've been tracking stuff that's been happening with Ukraine and just having a place that people can come ask questions and be in a community. I know it's a time that's very concerning to others, and we know we have viewers in Ukraine. We know that they are a visible percentage in our data, so obviously we're sending all of our thoughts and prayers over to them, and they just stay well, and we thank you guys again for helping get to some supplies over there, and we'll keep updated. And of course we'll be back next week for another episode of the Launch Pod, where we'll talk about everything that happened in space. There are a few launches coming up. There's a few Soyuzes that were scheduled, so we're not too sure how those are going, so make sure you have your notifications turned on if there ends up being one. We're going to be considering covering it, and we'll let you know, but at this point I don't expect to be seeing anything launching from there in the near future. The next one for sure coming up is going to be Starlink 4-10 on Monday, I believe. And then a week later, we have 4-11 as well. So Starlink getting back in the game with a couple launches, and then we have Axiom 1 at the end of the month. But that's going to do it for us here on this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you head over to the Discord. And to end it, I think there's only one thing I can think of to say, which is glory to Ukraine. And we'll see you next week. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.